Welcome back to another episode of Porno Adventure in Iran. In the last episode in Maranjab, we started our journey from the campground and the bastions, with Darius driving in the desert for the very first time. We are at the Maranjab today, in the Maranjab Desert. Hello, someone's in the back. We're going to see camels today. Look at the camel. Hello, Camely. What are you eating? You want to give him a bit buffet? No. He's coming. We gathered our convoy at the Maranjab Caravan, got everyone together and entered to the dunes as a team. From the first soft sand to the first big dune walls, everything was a new challenge. It was the kind of a day where you learn fast how to keep momentum, how to stay calm, and how quickly the desert can punish one small mistake.
معیار آروم خط عوض نکن. معیار کی به شما اجازه داد خط رو تغییر بدی؟ بیا برو سر بالا با این نستا.
Darius took the first section on the Vibrates road of Maranjab, and from there the real desert driving began.
خطه که پایین تر هست اومده توی این بگیر راننده پرام، بگیر راننده یه ذره، بگیر راننده باریکلا. این راننده رو بیش از حد بگیره، این تای ماشین سر میخوره.
Soft sand, deep tracks and steep dune walls. Every turn asks for more attention, more control and more trust in the car. Then came our first recovery. از این ور فکر کنم بهتر باشه. One of our car got stuck deep in the sand, and we had to pull it out with the Toro. That's when you really understand the desert. It doesn't care how experienced you are. It only cares whether you respect her.
گاز بده پرام، گاز بده میره، گازو ول نکن پوچا.
After that, Darius and I switched driver. I took the wheel and started climbing the taller dunes, the kind that makes you think before you press the throttle. High sand walls, narrow lines, and steep drops on both sides. That's where Maranjab becomes unforgettable. But the desert wasn't finished with us yet. At the top of one of those high dunes, one of our cars hit the bumper hard and developed a radiator problem. Coolant started leaking, and in the desert, that's not something you ignore. If we hadn't fixed it, the engine could overheat and the whole convoy could stop right there in the sand. The two persons were there too. Luckily, our tour leader had an adhesive with him, and we managed to patch the radiator and keep moving. Out here, every small fix matters. Every minute counts. From there, we drove deeper toward the Father and Son Hill, also known as a Satan Hill. And while the convoy kept moving, Kian was having the time of his life, playing in the soft sand like it was a giant sandbox. Then we left the cars behind and walked up to the Satan Hill, standing like the stadium in the middle of the desert.
دستتو بگیر بالا بیا ما کاملشیم ولی اگه دستتو بگیری
فورچونره
نه این فورچونره
ماشین ما
این اگه بیاد از این دیواره نمیاد دستتو خیلی خوب شد
اون در اومد
اون
در اومد
آره دیگه 6 سیلندر دیگه. From there we could see two Toyota cars trying hard to climb out of the hill, fighting the sand with every meter. It was one of those moments where you stop driving and just watch the desert challenge everyone equally. Just as the light began to fade, the desert changed again. The sun went down, the shadows got longer, and episode 2 truly began. This is the night in Maranjab, the part you've been waiting for.
Night is soft, time stand still. Secret thoughts fill every thrill. Warm your breath,
The desert changes completely after sunset.
stay
A few hours ago, we were standing on top of the Satan Hill, watching cars
breeze creeps
fight their way through the sand under the last light of the day.
fly, heart drift
Now the sun is gone,
drown inside
and Maranjab has turned into something else entirely.
silent love begins to unfold.
Out here, once the light disappears, there is nothing but darkness. The only thing between you and the desert is your headlights.
Secret thoughts fill,
Tonight, we still have a long drive ahead of us.
warm your breath,
Everyone is tired, but before we can rest, we need to find a good place to camp.
feel
Somewhere safe, somewhere flat, somewhere quiet enough to enjoy the night.
It's crazy how dark it gets here. I mean, when the light points away, you literally see nothing.
lazy
Yeah, that's a desert at night.
we need to
Without light, it's completely pitch black. Even the horizon disappears.
silent
Look at the sand. It looks like waves.
oceans gently roll, fall
Exactly. And those waves can hide big drops. That's why driving here at night is much harder than during the day.
every thrill.
تمام گاز بده تخته کن بیا بالا تمام تو لاین خودت باش بازیکن میاد بگیر سمت شاگردت
Driving
تمام
in the
رد کرد
desert during the day is already a challenge. But at night, everything becomes more dangerous. You can't see the full shape of the dunes. You can't judge the depth of the slopes. And every wall of sand could hide a steep drop on the other side. So the rule is simple: slow, careful, and always follow the convoy.
چاره‌ای ندارم.
Today was a long day.
It was a big one for you. First time driving in the desert.
Yeah, and I got thrown straight into the dunes.
You did well though. Starting from the campground, then the bus dunes, then those big walls. Not an easy place to learn.
No more words we need to spin, lost within a quiet kin. Tender vibes are taking hold, silent love begins to unfold. Soft emotions gently roll, falling deep into your side is soft.
Darius almost got stuck.
Hey, almost doesn't count.
Everyone almost gets stuck on their first day. That's how you learn sand driving. Momentum, smooth steering, and patience.
بیا پایین اومدی پایین برو دست چپ وایسه تو دست چپت وایسه بیا پایین بقیه هم بیا پایین داده بیا پایین بقیه هم بیره پایین
AMC فوتون بریم دیگه.
این وطن رو نورو تو بنداز به اینجا جان؟ نورو تو بنداز رو این بر گوز روشن شد
Now we are heading back from the Satan Hill. But Maranjab has one more challenge waiting for us. The Dune walls. Tall, steep and endless. Darius, put the projectors on. Put the light bar on. No. And at night they feel even bigger. One wall, then another and another.
Every thrill, warm your breath, feel the chill. Stay with me, fulfill the will.
Alright, big one coming.
Creeps through the
Hold on.
night, quiet
Yeah!
I hope I'm not stuck.
Mama, check the wheel.
Because if no, under, because in middle. Because if that base stop, car begins descending slowly. Nobody can come back up to pull me. Kian, what are you doing?
That looks very steep.
Yes, it is. The trick is to let the car roll slowly. No sudden brakes, no sharp steering. Just control. Kian, don't make yourself dirty, Baba. Okay, let's go.
It feels like a roller coaster.
A very expensive roller coaster. Without floodlights, we would see nothing. The desert absorbs light. Everything outside the beam disappears into darkness. Each car becomes a moving island of light, and the convoy becomes a trail of glowing dunes.
I'm exhausted.
Everybody is. Desert driving takes energy. Your eyes are constantly searching the sand. Your hands are slowly adjusting the steering. Even when you are sitting still in the passenger seat, you feel it.
When are we camping?
Soon, Baba. We just need to find the right spot. Camping in the desert isn't random. You need the right place. Flat ground, protected from wind, far from steep dunes, and safe for the convoy. Tonight we want something simple. A fire, some food, and a peaceful night under the stars.
باریکلا جمعش کن دیگه جمعش کن نزنی ماشین رو بچه یه ذره آروم‌تر بیاین پایین دیگه نزنید ماشین منحرف شه
Another wall.
Another one?
Welcome to Maranjab. Wall after wall after wall. Car descends again slowly. Sand sliding under the tires.
با گاز صافش کن
The dunes start getting smaller. the ground becomes flatter,
ماشین بعدی بیا پایین.
which means we are getting closer to a good camping spot.
آبد الان تو شیبی؟
The engine is slowed down, the convoy is spread out, and finally we find it.
چرا نیاد؟ بیا تینو بیا.
Moments like these remind you why people fall in love with the desert. It's quiet, it's wild, and it forces you to slow down and move carefully. You respect the land and you rely on the people around you. That's what Convoy really is. Not just cars, a team, a teamwork. This looks good. Flat ground, protected from wind.
It's perfect.
Can we get out now?
Yes, you can. Adventure for today is finished. Now it's time for the desert night.
Are we gonna make a big fire tonight?
Of course.
And cook?
If we can still stand after all this driving.
We will cook something simple and enjoy the night. That's the best part of the desert. The first day in Maranjab tested us. First time driving in the dunes, recoveries, radiator problems, high walls of sand, and now, night driving through the desert. But this is only the beginning, because in Maranjab, the real magic happens after dark. They say the desert is silent, but it is actually a concept of wind and shifting sand. Last night, the sky was a masterpiece. No city lights, just a deep, infinite ocean of stars. We sat by the fire, just breathing it in.
There's a baby. That's a baby. That's a baby.
Look guys, the masters of the desert.
They look so calm. How do they survive out here for weeks without hitting a gas station or even a water tap?
Is all in the hump. Darius, people think it's a water, but it's actually a fat. They store energy there so they can go days without food. And their bodies are so efficient. They barely lose moisture. They are the ultimate off-roaders.
Darius, did you see the mouse last night? It didn't run, it jumped like a little kangaroo.
Yeah, I saw it. It's called a desert JERBOA. They're built for this kind of stuff. They jump to cover distance without using too much energy in the soft sand. When he was going down.
Look at this place. Every time we drive here, it feels like the desert has a story hidden under every dune.
It really does. When you look around, it's hard to imagine that all of this was once part of something very different.
Like what? Was it always sand?
No, not always. That's the interesting part. Places like Maranjab look timeless, but they've changed many times over thousands and thousands of years.
This is the kind of place that makes you really think about what ancient Persia was like.
Exactly. When people talk about the ancient Persia, they often think about palaces, kings, armies, and cities. But Persia was also a land of trade routes, desert road, travelers, caravans, and survival. Deserts like these were not empty. They were important. They connected places.
So people really used to travel here?
Yes, long ago. Caravans passes through these routes with camels, goods, water, food, and people. Maranjab was part of the bigger desert network that connected towns, forts, and trade paths.
So this wasn't just a wilderness, it was a road.
Right, Darius. A very difficult road. But for centuries, this was one of the way people moved through the region.
I keep thinking about how people survived here without modern cars, GPS, or even recovery gear.
They had knowledge. That was their gear. They knew the stars, the wind, the shape of the land, the timing of the seasons, and the habits of the animals. A good caravan leader could read the desert better than many people today read the map.
Did they walk all the time?
Sometimes, but camels were the main support for the long desert travel. Camels could carry heavy loads and move across the soft sand much better than many other animals.
So that's why they were so important for trade.
Yes, camels helped connect cities, markets, and settlement across long distances. Without them, desert travel would have been much harder and much more dangerous.
Why are camels so good at this?
Because they are designed for it. Their feet spread their weight on the sand. Their bodies can handle heat. Their humps store fat, which gives them energy when food is scarce. And they can go a long time without water compared to many other animals.
So when we see these wild camels here, they're basically the descendants of the desert specialists.
Exactly, Darius. They belong to this environment in a way we never really can.
But how did all of this sand even get here?
That's a big question, Kian. Deserts are not created by one thing. They are shaped over a very long time by the climate, wind, water, erosion, and geologies.
So the dunes didn't just appear overnight then.
Not at all. First, you need material. Sand usually comes from rocks that break down over time. Heat, cold, wind, and water slowly wear mountains and stone into smaller pieces.
So rocks became tiny pieces and then they became sand?
Yes, Kian. Then wind carries these particles and sort them. In some places, the sand piles up. In others, it gets blown away. Over a long time, that movement creates dunes.
And the shape of the dunes depends on the wind?
Exactly. Wind direction, wind strength, the amount of the sand available, and the shape of the ground all affect how dunes form.
So that's why some dunes are small and some are huge.
Yes, exactly. Some dunes are low and soft. Others become tall walls, especially when the wind keeps pushing sand into the same place again and again.
These wall dunes here are crazy. They look like giant barriers.
That's a good way to describe them. Wall dunes form where the sand collects in steep, tall shapes. The wind pushes them from one side and they build up like a natural ramp or wall.
Why are they so steep?
Look, Ian, because sand behaves differently than solid ground. When sand accumulates, it reaches a point where it can't hold a steeper angle. Then it slides down a little, and the dune keeps balancing itself. That's why dunes can look sharp but still constantly change.
So they're not fixed.
No, dunes are alive in a way. Not alive like animals, but always moving. Even if you stand in one place, the dune is changing with the wind.
That's why the desert looks different every time?
Exactly. Desert driving isn't just about the speed, it's about the angle. One wrong flick of the wrist a little too much steering input on a descent, and gravity does the rest. When you're stuck like this, the first instinct is to hit the gas. Don't. It only digs the chassis deeper into the sand. You have to unzip the sand. We use our hands, our shovels. We clear the path in front of every single tire. We need to create a ramp. Once the sand is cleared and we've dropped the tire pressure to widen the footprint, then we use the throttle. Slow, steady tension. Let the recovery vehicle do the pulling, while the stock car just helps with the gentle throttle. It's a dance of physics, not strength. In this trip alone, we have had several recoveries. Every time a car gets stuck is a lesson. Maybe the tire pressure was too high. Maybe they lost momentum. Or maybe they just hit the patch of the dead sand. But that's the deal we make with the desert. We help each other. Or we don't go home, none of us.
جلوش هم خالی کنی. Darius, Kian, before you come, put the car off. Kian, put the car off.
Can we talk more about how these dunes actually build up?
Sure. Think of a wind as a transport system. It picks up the grains, moves them and drops them when the wind slows down or hits an obstacle. Over time, the grains start to collect.
Like sand getting trapped.
Exactly. A small mound can start a process. The more sand gathers on the windward side, the leeward side becomes steeper. When the slope gets too steep, sand slides down. That's called avalanching. But on a small scale, that cycle keeps repeating.
So the dune is always rebuilding itself.
Yes, it's constant balance between wind pushing and gravity pulling.
That's why we keep changing shape.
Exactly, Kian.
پایین رو خالی کنید بالا خالی میشه. هر چی واسه جلوشه بردارید.
فرمونش هم داریم کنیم که الان بچرخه.
خب با ماسه رو بردارن.
I like how the convoy moves through it all. It feels they were not just driving on the desert, we're moving with it.
That's important. If you respect the desert, you move with it. If you fight it, it wins.
That happened when the car got stuck.
Yes, and that's why recovery matter. In sand, momentum, tire pressure, line choice, and patience matter more than power.
The desert teaches you that quickly.
Yes, it does.
So this place has history from ancient Persia, old caravans, camels, water long ago, and wind making dunes now?
That's right. Maranjab is not just a pretty desert. It's a place with the layers of time in it.
I think that's why it feels different from other deserts and other places.
It is different. Every dune here is a result of a long process. Every route through it has been used by people before us. And every camel we see is part of the survival story written over generation.
I'm glad I came here with you guys.
Me too.
What about the wild camels we saw? Why do they live here and not somewhere greener?
Because they are adapted to this kind of environment. Camels can handle heat, dry air, and long distances. They can drink a lot of water quickly when they find it, and then survive for a long time with much less.
Their bodies are basically built around conservation.
Exactly. They waste less water than many animals. Their arms are fat storage, not water storage. But that fat helps them survive when food is limited.
So they're like desert tanks.
A little bit, yes, Kian.
And they probably know where the best spots are better than we do.
Most likely, animals that live in a place full time understand it in a way visitors never can. Look at the light this morning. It changes everything.
The dunes do look softer now than they did at night time.
At night they were scary.
At night, every dune looks bigger and steeper. In the morning, you can finally see the full shape.
That's why I like driving here early. The color of the sand changes fast.
Yes, morning light gives the dunes depth. You can see the curves, the shadows, and the ridges. It makes the whole landscape looks alive.
And we're still driving on the same dunes that looked impossible last night.
That's right. Same train, different feeling.
There's something strange about desert travel. It feels empty at first, but then the more you look, the more it gives you.
That's a good way to put it in. The desert looks empty if you only look quickly. But if you spend the time here, you start noticing texture, history, movement, animal life, old routes, and the shape of the land.
Even the silence feels different.
Yes, in the city, silence is full of noise. Here, silence is real.
And the sky.
The sky is part of the experience too. At night, there is no light pollution, so the stars become overwhelming. You feel how small you are.
I like that part. It felt like the stars were everywhere.
Because they were.
Look, Bubba. It's a waterfall of sand. It just keeps flowing.
Yeah, Kian. It's called the angle of the repose. The sand is always looking for its balance. You're just helping it find it. Look at it, it's going down.
چینسوره میخوای بیای؟ یا پایین دیگه نمیام
Why do they keep getting stuck? Is the sand alive?
It's not alive, but it's behaved like the liquid.
Mr. Adaptations, the monster. What's the man on the noise? I'm the job. I'm the man in the conditions. I'm the job. All of us I know I'm the change. I'm the good. Mr. Adaptations, the one shot. I'm so little. I'm so good. Come on, sensation. All of us I know I'm the change. I'm the good. Mr. Adaptations, the one shot. I'm so little. I'm so
You said once that this desert was underwater a long time ago. Really?
Yes, very long ago. This region was not always like this. Over a geological time, some desert areas were covered by seas, lakes or shallow waters.
So the ground that we're driving on could have been underwater.
In a much older world, yes. The landscape has changed many times over 1 million of years. Water came and went, seas retreated, sediment settled, mountains rose, winds shaped the surface later.
That sounds impossible.
It sounds impossible because we are only seeing one moment in time. But the earth is always changing, just very slowly compared to our lives.
That makes these dunes feel even more special. They're not just sand, they're the result of a huge history.
Exactly. Every layer here is part of that long story.
Mr. Adaptations, the monster. What's the man on the noise? I'm the job. I'm the man adaptations revolution. Ağlasan o anda çıkışım neşeli gülüm. Biz bir aralarını bileceğiz revolution. Arzu verin açışına açıran. Kemal dinledikleri sen değişen. Ağlasan o anda çıkışım neşeli gülüm. Biz bir aralarını bileceğiz revolution. Arzu
Bubba, sometimes when we drive on the sand, it feels like the sand is vibrating or humming. Why is that?
That happens because sand can move and settle in waves when pressure passes through it. When tires roll over it, the grain shift, compress, and slide past each other. That movement can create a kind of the vibration under the car.
So it's not the car shaking, it's the sand reacting.
Right. Soft sand is not a solid road. It's a loose surface. When the tires push into it, the sand redistributes under the weight. That creates the feeling of vibration, especially in the softer section.
So the sand is like it's talking back.
That's a one way to say it.
And when the tires dig in too much, that's when we get stuck.
Exactly. If the sand can't support the tire movement, the wheel just sinks instead of rolling forward. Okay, that's it. The bus tunes. The biggest drop in Maranjab.
Baba, are you sure? Holy shit.
Trust the car. Trust the gravity. Straight steering. Don't touch the brake. Just let her flow.
We reached the road.
Woo!
Even when it's hard, it's worth it.
Especially when it's hard.
Can we stop again and look at the dunes from the top?
Yes, let's do it.
خسته نباشی برو پایین نادر جان.
یک دو
عالی بودی دمت هم گرم. همشی به اتوبوسیه. برو برو بیا برو پایین. خیلی هم آروم نگیر.
Imagine traveling here centuries ago.
It must have been difficult, but also meaningful. Caravans moved slowly through the desert, often in long lines. They carried goods like cloth, salt, spices, dried food, tools, and other trade items.
Were they scared?
They had to be careful. The desert could be dangerous. Heat, cold nights, storms, getting lost, lack of water, and exhaustion. That's why caravan leaders were so important.
So then they needed to know the exact routes.
Yes, they use landmarks, stars, wells, forts, and memory. A wrong turn in the desert could cost a lot.
So Maranjab was part of that old travel system?
Yes, routes like these were part of the much larger movement of a people and goods through the Iranian plateau and beyond. What a journey this has been. From the first steps into Maranjab, to the long night under the stars, to the morning drive across the dunes, every moment of this trip reminded us why the desert is so special. Maranjab is not just sand, it's a history, silence, challenge, beauty, and life all at once. We talk about the ancient Persia, old caravan routes, the camels that still survive in this land, and the endless shapes of the dunes that wind has been creating for 1,000 of years. And of course, we felt the desert in a very real way, in the climbs, the descents, the stock cars, the recoveries, and the teamwork that kept everyone moving forward. And at the very end, just like the desert always reminds us, things can change in a second. One of our cars suffered a tire explosion and we had to stop and help. This is the truth of the desert travel. Even when the road is beautiful, it can still test you. But that is also what makes this trip unforgettable. We don't just drive through the desert, we experience it together. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment and tell us which moment you like the most. Was it the dunes, the camels, the night sky, or the recovery and teamwork? Your comment means a lot to us and they help us know what kind of adventures you want to see next. And of course, wait for the next trip because there are many more deserts of Iran to explore, many more roads to take, and many more adventures ahead. Thank you for being with us on this journey. Until the next episode, goodbye.